Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to another Bookmas video. Today we are going to be talking about my top 10 books from 2023. Also, I just want to apologize for this little light streak that might at some point be on my face in this video. Right now it is. I'm working with the natural lighting. We just gotta do what we gotta do. So yeah, I have all of my books right here. I will be honest, most of these are series. When I'm talking about the specific book, I'm talking about the series. And I do have some books that I did read on Kindle, so I don't have them with me. This is also in no particular order. I think that would stress me out even more trying to actually put it like 1 through 10. I know a lot of people right now are doing the 23 top books of 2023. I think that's a little too many books for me to choose from of like my favorites from the year. I thought doing a top 10 was definitely a safe bet. We're going to talk about actually first the 2 books that I read on Kindle that I don't have a physical copy of, just so that I do not forget to talk about these books. This series definitely had its moment on BookTube and this year, and that is Chestnut Springs. Personally, my favorite book in the Chestnut Springs series is Heartless, which is the second book. It is a single dad ex-babysitter trope, and I love it so much. If you've never heard of the Chestnut Springs series, it is a cowboy romance series. The first book is a bull rider ex-publicist. They're all interconnected standalone. You don't have to read them in order, but it's all the like brothers of this ranch, and it's small town, super good. I read up until book 3, and then I haven't read any of the other books. The second book definitely is my favorite from that series. And then also another book that I read for the first time this year, but I feel like everyone else has already read this, From Lukov with Love, which is a figure skating romance. It is from Mariana Zapata. Slow burn. It is a super long book. If I'm remembering correctly, it is a figure skating duo that gets placed together, and they kind of have to learn how to skate together. This light is actually going to piss me off. So getting into the physical books that I have. So this top one is Survive the Night by Riley Sager. This is a thriller book about a murder that happens on a college campus. Our main character has to do a drive share to get back home. They just need to kind of escape what's going on campus. It's been a lot of stress on them. And so the whole point of this book is there's still a murderer out there, and they're doing this random drive share, and you don't know what's going on. I really liked this book. It took a lot of turns that I did not see coming. I think this was my first Riley Sager book that I've ever read. It's my first Riley Sager book that I've ever read, and I had a really good time with this. In all honesty, when I was choosing a lot of these books, the reason they're on this list is because I have like specific memories of the time of year, and when I read these books, they just left an impact on me. The next books, they're technically 2 books, but I did it in one space because it is 2 Bridgerton books. So I read Queen Charlotte when the TV show came out on Netflix. I believe it was over the springtime. If you've not read this and you've watched the show, it's pretty much the exact same thing. This is pretty much just like the exact dialogue that they took to make the show, or vice versa. I don't know technically which one came first. I had such a good time with this. I think this is such an underrated romance book and that more people should try it out. I also think that this is an absolutely stunning cover, and the dust jacket is actually reversible. I believe this is like the OG dust jacket. This is obviously the show cover. But yeah, I had such a good time reading this book, and it was definitely like one of those romance books that has you giggly, and I had such a good time with it. And then the second Bridgerton book that I had such a good time with this year is the one that the latest season is going to be about. So this is Cullen and Penelope's story. It is a friends to lovers romance. It is very steamy, very spicy, but it was such a great book, such a great story. These are very easy reads. I read this literally in one day, in one sitting. I had such a good time with this. Really loved this book. Who would have thought? I'm starting this video out with cowboy romances and Regency era romances. Oh, to be single in my 20s. This next book needs no introduction. I'm sure it's in like everyone's videos this year of this. The Once Upon a Broken Heart series. I have the first book. In all honesty, if I were to choose a favorite book out of the series, it would be the second book. I actually just finished the Caraval series, and I just have to say, Stephanie Garber, she is one of my favorite YA authors. She knows what she's doing, and I loved this series so much. I loved the characters so much. Jack's Evangeline, the whole story. It was just really fun to read and very easy to read. Yeah, I'll probably reread this next year just because I really miss the characters and the world. This next book is another book that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about, or honestly I've not heard anyone talk about since like the first TikTok I had that recommended this book to me, but I made a whole reading vlog about this and I've been gushing about this book ever since. It is Bad Luck Charm by Julie Johnson. This is, I believe, going to be a interconnected standalone series of this kind of witchy town, witchy friend group type of a situation. This is about, oh, hi baby. Okay, this book is about Gwendolyn Good and Graham Graves. She runs an occult shop in Salem, Massachusetts, and one day this basically ritual sacrifice happens outside of her shop. After the sacrifice happens outside of her shop, the cops are pretty much like, hey, you might be the target. We need to look out for you. And that's where Graham comes in. He is a private investigator, basically helping trying to solve what is going on with her, but they have a past history. They start falling in love. It's a romance book. It's so good. There's a who did this to you quote. I have it literally highlighted. I don't know. I have so many good quotes in this book highlighted and tabbed and stuff. I loved this book so much. Please read this. Please. I also believe it's on Kindle Unlimited. That could be a lie. I just pulled that out of my ass, but I have a feeling it is on Kindle Unlimited. Someone with Kindle Unlimited, please check for me. I hate that these are all romance books because, in all honesty, I feel like I didn't read that many romance books this year, but like most of these favorites have been romance books. I will say I did have my fantasy slump at the second half of this year, and not trying to jinx myself, but after reading the Carvel series, I do think I'm finally getting back into the swing of things. I want to read more fantasy. But that being said, another romance that just got my heart giggly and tugged at its strings, Elsie and Jack from Love Theoretically. This is obviously Miss Allie Hazelwood. It is a STEM romance, and let me just say, Allie Hazelwood, I would literally, I know everyone says this quote all the time, I would fucking pay to view her grocery list. I love her writing so much. This is my favorite Allie Hazelwood book by far. This is about two scientists. One is a physicist and one is a theorist, and they are two sides of science that do not like each other because obviously one is about theories that happen and one is about the actual experiments. How they meet is just so interesting. There is fake dating in this, but it's not in the way that you think. I loved this book so much. Jack, I need this man so bad. I loved him. Oh, I was reading that book kicking my feet screaming, and I live in an apartment. My neighbors were probably pissed. Okay, to spice things up and mix things up, we're going to be talking about another fantasy YA series. I honestly kind of forgot that I had read this series just because it feels like I read this so long ago, but I believe I read this around like February, maybe March, and that is the Kingdom of the Wicked series. I feel like this also had its time in the beginning of the year, and then no one's been talking about it since. It's about these two twin sisters, and one of the twin sisters goes missing, so the other twin sister basically calls upon one of the princes of hell to figure out where her sister is, what's going on, and things kind of go from there. I had such a good time with these books. I read them back to back and I loved them. So yeah, if you have not read this series and you like YA fantasy, you want a series that's going to be a little bit faster to get through, I would really recommend that series. I also had a very fun time with that series. And then also another book that I do not shut the fuck up about, because this year, for some random reason, the TikTok algorithm brought F1 onto my feed, and I got an obsession with F1. And because of that, I decided to read the Dirty Air series by Lauren Asher, and I was introduced to Wrecked, which is Jax Kingston. I love that man with everything in me. In my head, when I read the book, I do picture Lewis Hamilton. You're welcome. This book, so good. It is about Elena and Jax. It's another one of those stories of a sports star and then some sort of like publicist manager falling in love. There's a lot of trauma and depth to Jax that, you know, he's fighting demons within himself, as well as falling in love with Elena and trying to let her in. And I loved this book so much. So good. If you are into F1 and you've not read this series, please read this series. Even if you aren't into F1, read this series. I will say it is pretty heavy on F1 things. Not that you need to know any of them before you go into this book. If you want just a sports romance where the sports and that stuff doesn't matter, a lot of the events are like Grand Prix and galas and things like that. So loved this book, had such a great time with this, and I read this on Kindle Unlimited and then I ended up buying the physical copy because I wanted to reread it. So this will also be another reread in the new year. Very excited about that because I miss those characters. Should we talk about my last book together? Do you want to talk about my last book together before we go for our walk? Are we going to talk about this last book before we go for a walk? Before she starts going insane, the last book that I want to talk about is also one of my favorite fantasy books that I've ever read. And again, it had its moment in the beginning of the year. Everyone was reading about it, everyone was talking about it, and then no one has talked about it since. And it is The Serpent and the Wings of Night. This is a fantasy world with vampires. It kind of is like Hunger Games trial-esque. Our main character is a human who basically was adopted by the Vampire King. There is this game sort of trial situation where the person who wins the trial basically gets, like, I believe it's like a wish granted. The whole purpose, the reason why she wants to win is because she's basically felt her entire life like she's in danger, and she wants to win these trials and win this wish because she wants to feel safe. She wants to get this wish so that people will not look at her like she's this delicate little thing and that they could kill her really easily. I have just stuttered over so many words. I absolutely adored this book. I thought it was so good. If you've not read it, again, check this one out. This one I believe is still on Kindle Unlimited, but yeah, I really liked this book. I had a great time reading it this year. I will say the second book, it is a duology. There is a novella. I did not read the novella. The second book is a little iffy for me, but when I think about this series, I mainly just think about this first book. Yeah, I loved this book so much. Those are my top 10 reads of 2023. If you liked any books in this list, or if you had any great books that I did not talk about in this video that, you know, were some of your favorites of 2023, let me know in the comments. And yeah, I will see you in my next Bookmas video. I hope you've been enjoying Bookmas. I want to say we're like almost done. Like, it's almost Christmas, which is fucking crazy. But yeah, I love you. I will see you in my next video. Bye.